hero RB build where you only take one running back in the first 6, 7 rounds of your fantasy draft. So we'll see how the strategy went. So I had first pick overall. I took Jahmyr Gibbs. He's my number one going into the season. But if you prefer Bijan Robinson, I think, to be honest, it's pretty close between these two running backs. But I just obviously trust the Lions offense more of getting Gibbs in the right positions game in and game out. And now with David Montgomery gone, traded to the Texans in the offseason, I think that's a plus for him as well. Then second round, George Pickens, he fell a little bit past his ADP. George Pickens, a monster year last year with the Dallas Cowboys, put up huge numbers. Obviously, was Pickens, especially the game CeeDee Lamb was at. And he's on the franchise tag, and he wants a long-term deal, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if he goes out there, has another good year. Then third round, I went Trey McBride, arguably the best tight end in all football, him or Brock Bowers. And when you're going with this strategy, you better fill out all your positions, obviously. And then you go running back heavy later in your fantasy draft. So like I said, to get arguably the best tight end in fantasy football with Trey McBride in the third round, it's good value, obviously. Last season, he was a monster, Trey McBride. Him and Jacoby Brissett were locked in once Kyler Murray went down with injury. And now we'll see Brissett once again, the starter going into the year. Then fourth round, Davante Adams. Adams, he was a touchdown machine last year, but obviously his receptions and receiving yards went down with the Los Angeles Rams in his first season over there. And obviously Puka Nacua, the main man in the receiving room for this Ram team. Obviously Kyron Williams, he had a nice season once again last year. But to start off with Gibbs, Pickens, Trey McBride, Adams, then to get Lamar Jackson in the fifth round, where to me he's the second quarterback in all fantasy football going into the season. I know injuries and a down year was last season for Lamar Jackson, but he usually bounces back, and he's entering his ninth season in the NFL. So Lamar, with his rushing ability alone, he's going to carry you to victories. And like I've been saying on this Yahoo platform, the quarterbacks have just been dropping. It's like Josh Allen in the third round, and everyone else ADP-wise is going in that fifth round. But I know in my drafts coming up in the season, those quarterbacks, they can be off the board earlier than sixth round. I went with another Cardinal, Marvin Harrison Jr. I know his rookie year, people were big on him. He was going second round in most fantasy draft. The first two seasons for Marvin Harrison haven't been good. Obviously, Trey McBride, who I took early in the draft, the number one option over there for this Arizona Cardinal team. But Marvin Harrison, he's a physical specimen. Might have took him a couple years, maybe coming into this year, refocus, new coaching staff, he could get things going. But like I said, to take a flyer on him in the sixth round, you could do worse. But to have two Cardinal guys in the starting lineup could be a little bit shaky as well. And then I start going back with the backs. I get Tony Pollard. He's my second running back in the seventh round. Tony Pollard, he had some decent games last season, especially towards the end of the year. And really, there's no competition over there once again for Tony Pollard, where it's only Tajay Spears in that backfield. They didn't bring anyone else in, so I think Pollard will be fine. And we know he's capable of carrying a workload. Then eighth round, I went Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle, he's been great the last two seasons. 1,000 yards in 2024 with the Dallas Cowboys. And then last season, he had some monster games last year with the Carolina Panthers, rushing over 200 yards 2 games in a row. But now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers, is Rico Dowdle. He's behind Jaylen Warren, but I've said this in other videos. I think this could be a 50-50 split between these two running backs. And I just like Rico's running style. He runs hard. He runs at the defense, obviously, he's Rico Dowdle. And he has a nose for the end zone. Ninth round, RJ Harvey. So like I said, after getting a running back in the first round, then 7 to 9, I went 3 in a row. And RJ Harvey, he has the capability of being the number one back over there, I believe, is RJ Harvey for this Denver Bronco team. He's already locked in as a passing downs back. Good third down guy, good hands out of the backfield. I know, obviously, J.K. Dobbins still there, even though he's an injury waiting to happen, unfortunately, for him. And Jonah Coleman, he's been impressive so far in training camp, is the rookie for this Denver Bronco team. But like I said, R.J. Harvey, he can catch the football out of the backfield. I think in between the tackles, he'll be all right. He's like an A-Chan type, in my opinion. Then 10th round, back to receiver, Jacoby Myers. He had a good second half of the year last year when he was traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it's a little bit of a logjam at receiver over there. You got Brian Thomas, you got the mentioned Myers, Parker Washington, Travis Hunter, if he's going to get reps at the wide receiver position. But hey, to take a 10th round flyer on Myers, I think it's all right. Then Casey Concepcion, one of my favorite rookies to draft. If you've been watching the channel in these fantasy drafts, Concepcion arguably could be the number one wide receiver on this roster, this Cleveland Brown team, over Jerry Jeudy, where Jeudy last season got an opportunity and couldn't get the job done. Then the 12th round, Deebo Samuel. Right now, it's pretty much Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans, and Striblin, the wide receivers left over there for this San Francisco 49er team, with Jawan Jennings leaving in free agency. Ricky Pierce already out for the season. He's been injury prone, unfortunately, early in his career. So Deebo, they signed him up last week, and I think he could go out there and be solid for fantasy owners, is Deebo Samuel. Then Alvin Kamara, 13th round. He's still going to have a role with the same team. Third down, passing downs back. We know ETN, he got nice money in the offseason, did Travis Etienne. But Kamara, he restructured. He wants to be on this team. Obviously, spent his whole career there. To take him in the 13th round, I don't think it's a risk. You keep him on the bench a few weeks and see what he does. And then to round it out, like I always do, kicker, defense, or vice versa in the last 2 rounds. Get Evan McPherson. He should have a decent year with a good offense to get opportunities. And the Steelers' defense, for the most part, is usually a solid unit. Now the final roster with this hero RB strategy, first of 3 drafts I did for this video: Lamar Jackson at quarterback, George Pickens, Davante Adams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Tony Pollard, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison, Evan McPherson in the Steelers D. So I think I got great balance, like I said, where you got to fill out the other positions if you're only going to get one running back in the first 6, 7 rounds of your fantasy drafts. And obviously I think I'm strong at the quarterback position, very strong at the tight end position. Receiver, a little bit shaky with Marvin Harrison as my third receiver flex option. But everything else, even Tony Pollard is my number 2 back. Like I said, not drafting a running back for 6 rounds, I still think is a decent option. And then the bench, Rico Dotto, RJ Harvey, Jacoby Myers, Casey Concepcion, Deebo Samuel, Alvin Kamara. So in these PPR leagues, if you haven't noticed, I like drafting 6 wide receivers, obviously. You can never have enough depth. And also running backs, you got to get that running back depth, because if one guy goes down, you're really thin, especially with the strategy. But like I said, with the first overall pick, could have done worse with the strategy. Now the second draft I did with this hero RB strategy, Christian McCaffrey, I took with the 6th pick. And going into the season, he's my 5th pick overall, is Christian McCaffrey. So CMC, we know he's a big part of this offense. We know injuries have been a problem for him as well throughout his NFL career on and off, is Christian McCaffrey. But when he plays, obviously he's one of the best and arguably the best running back in all pro football. So with a couple guys banged up already, and hopefully he'll be healthy to go, where he's a little nicked up in training camp. CMC have another monster year. Then second round, I went Nico Collins. Nico Collins, I like him as a player, but the last couple of years, injuries have definitely been a concern for Nico Collins, where he's a guy that he'll miss a few games here and there throughout the year, but he's easily the number 1 option is Nico Collins, obviously, on this Houston Texan team. They didn't do much in the offseason to bring anyone in. They got Jaden Higgins as a rookie last year. Dalton Schultz, he was decent at tight end. And then they're running back. The big acquisition was David Montgomery in the offseason. So I think Nico, as long as he's healthy, he's going to put up his numbers. He's going to find the end zone, and he has that big playmaking ability. Then again, Trey McBride, second draft in a row. Like I said, you got to maximize tight end and quarterback if you're going to go with the strategy. And to get Trey McBride, obviously arguably the best tight end, him or Bowers in the league. Number 1 option easily over there in Arizona. Him and Jacoby Brissett, definitely on the same wavelength. Then 4th round, Ted McMillan. I've been taking him a whole lot in these mock drafts. Is Ted McMillan easily the number 1 option over there for this Carolina Panther team. He could run all the routes. He's got the good height advantage. He could go out there and make plays. And he's a guy that, as a number 2 or 3 receiver, I think solid for owners going into their season. Then 5th round, Lamar, once again, was there. I don't know, just on this Yahoo platform, I sound like a broken record, but these quarterbacks are dropping. And to tell me that Lamar, he went 2nd or 3rd round in fantasy drafts last year. I know he was injured and obviously didn't play well, but to get him in the 5th round, I still think is great value just with his rushing upside alone. Then 6th round, Brian Thomas Jr. Definitely it was a bad sophomore season for Brian Thomas Jr., where his rookie year, he took the league by storm, but teams made adjustments, and Brian Thomas really didn't. Then he had drop problems. And also, as well, he's a little scared to cross the middle, unfortunately, is Brian Thomas. But I still think he's a guy that could go out there and help fantasy owners, 6th, 7th round range going into this year. Then Chuba Hubbard, I started again with the running backs. I went Chuba Hubbard in the 7th round. Hubbard is solid running back, another backfield this season. It's going to be Chuba Hubbard back there for this Carolina Panther team. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks, he's healthy, and they're raving about him so far in training camp. But coming off of 2 ACL injuries the last couple of years, I don't think it's that great for Brooks. They got to take caution with him. Then 8th round, RJ Harvey, another guy I keep drafting. Saw him in the previous draft. He's a good depth piece. He could be a guy that could take over as the season goes on, and he's already built into that third down, passing downs role. Then 9th round, Mekhi Lemon. I like Lemon this season. He arguably could be one of the top options in this Philadelphia Eagle offense. Obviously, A.J. Brown traded away in the offseason. I know they brought in Tavian Wicks, but they got Devonta Smith, Mekhi Lemon in that offense. That was Goddard and Barkley, but I like Lemon in the 9th round. Is a good pick for fantasy owners. Then to the 10th round, Kenneth Gainwell, another running back I've been drafting a whole lot in my fantasy leagues. He arguably was the best option towards the end of the year last year in the offense for the Steelers. Now he's in Tampa Bay, and it could be a timeshare with Bucky Irvin and Kenneth Gainwell. And at least for Gainwell, I think he's going to be a third down, passing downs guy early in the season. But to get him in the 10th round, and we saw some of the damage he did last season, I think is good value. Then 11th round, Deebo Samuel. Once again, Deebo Samuel's a guy I'm going to be drafting a lot. San Francisco, they don't have a lot in the receiving room. Deebo still knows the playbook. I know he lost a step here and there, and he's definitely injury prone, but why not in the 11th round where Deebo's my 5th wide receiver to take a shot on him? Then Casey Concepcion, one of the rookies I think they could have a breakout season this year is Concepcion. The Browns don't have much in that receiving room. They went with the youth movement, and I think he could be decent. Then Jonah Coleman, another Broncos running backs. I got Harvey and Coleman in this one, and see which guy breaks out, because Coleman, they're raving about him in training camp. Is this Denver Bronco team? We know Sean Payton, he likes his three-headed committees in the backfield, but Jonah Coleman, definitely a guy they're high on, and why not take him in the 13th round? There's a lot of repick. And then to close it out, Cam Little and the Ravens D set the final roster with the 6th overall pick in his hero RB strategy. Lamar Jackson once again, Nico Collins, Ted McMillan, Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, Trey McBride, Brian Thomas, Cam Little, Ravens D, the starting lineup. And then the bench, RJ Harvey again, Mekhi Lemon, Kenneth Gainwell, Deebo Samuel, Casey Concepcion, and Jonah Coleman. So I think overall, I like my wide receivers, Nico Collins, Ted McMillan, Brian Thomas, possibly as a bounce-back candidate. But it's all about depth and maximizing the positions, like I said. And again, like the first draft, we had the first overall with this hero RB build. Got Lamar and Trey McBride, and why not? You try to aim for those top guys at those positions. If you're obviously going to punt the running back position where you're taking one, and then obviously filling out in the middle to back end of your draft. So like I said, it's a decent strategy so far through 2 drafts with this hero RB. But like I said, I like getting more of a balanced team, even though I think for this one I got more balance than I would with the 6th pick overall. The final mock for the hero RB draft, 11th pick overall I had this time. And this time I didn't go running back in the first round. I went second round instead. So with the 11th pick, Justin Jefferson, I took. He's my number 11 player on the board is Justin Jefferson. And I figured for this hero RB strategy, I would get it running back easily on the way back in the second round. So Jefferson, we'll see if he bounces back this year. After a down season last year with J.J. McCarthy, Carson Wentz at quarterback. This season they brought in Kyler Murray. And then second round, Ashton Ginty, he fell a little bit where I had him ahead of Saquon Barkley and Amari and Hampton, guys that went before him in my rankings going into the season so far. So Ashton Ginty, a dual threat out of the backfield. Last year, it was an up and down year, but this Raider offensive line improved, and obviously the quarterback position improved. Regardless if it's Kirk Cousins or Mendoza starting the season, in my opinion, they're better than Geno Smith at this rate. So I think Ginty, he could have a decent second year. Then Rashee Rice in the 3rd round. I've been drafting Rice a decent amount throughout these mock drafts and these videos so far this season. But like I said, Rice, he's the number 1 option over there in this offense for this Kansas City Chief team in the receiving room. Travis Kelce taking a step back, possibly his last season. And Rice, the only thing with him is obviously keeping his head on straight and focusing on football. And if he could do that, obviously with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, he could be in for a big season. Then 4th round, once again, back to Ted McMillan. He just keeps falling in that 4th, 5th round range for me is Ted McMillan. Great receiver, I think, 1,000-yard season with a mediocre quarterback last season and Bryce Young. I know it's their second year together this season. And Ted, good route runner, good hands, obviously a height advantage over most corners and safeties. And in the 4th round, you can't go wrong with him, especially as your 3rd receiver. Then 5th round, like I said, you try to maximize other positions if you're not going to get a running back besides one in the first 7 rounds, and I went Jaden Daniels. Daniels last year was an injury-plagued year for him. He took some hits, but obviously his rushing ability is second to only Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, in all the NFL, and that's where he's going to give it to fantasy owners. And he's got two solid receivers in Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs. Backfield at Ja'Cory, Krosky Merritt, Rashad White. So I think Daniels, if he's healthy, could have a bounce-back season. And I think the 5th round's good value. Then I went wide receiver once again just to dip out my roster. I went Jameson Williams. JMO, we know he's got home run hitting ability, one-on-one coverage, with obviously attention roll to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Gibbs out of the backfield, and Sam Laporta in the middle of the field. And you can never have enough depth or wide receivers. So I figured as Jameson Williams is my 4th wide receiver, that's a slam dunk. Then I went back to the running back position. J.K. Dobbins is my second back. Obviously very shaky with Dobbins as my second running back going into the year. He is a good running back when he does play, but that's a big if. Every season it seems like he misses multiple weeks or multiple months throughout the years, J.K. Dobbins. So that's where I really had to brush up at the backups. Then 8th round, I went with my 5th wide receiver, Chris Godwin. Tight end, I wasn't going to reach, even though, like I said, it is about maximizing, but also not reaching and taking a player, 15, 20 picks ahead of ADP-wise. So I went Godwin there. Godwin, I think he's going to take a little bit of a backseat this season to Emeka Egbuka. Injuries have done him in over the last 2 seasons as Chris Godwin, but I still think he's got something left in the tank. And like I said, is my 5th receiver. You can't go wrong. Krosky Merritt, I took in the 9th round. He's going to be the starter for this Commander team. Obviously, they got Rashad White in the offseason to replace the Austin Eckler 3rd down passing downs role for this Commander team. And we know Krosky Merritt, physical in between the tackles. A lot of the coaching staff last season was raving about him. So as my 3rd back, I think could do a little worse than Krosky Merritt. Then 10th round, finally got the tight end Dalton Kincaid. He's, to me, either the 2nd or 3rd option now in that passing game, with DJ Moore most likely being the number 1 option where they traded for him from the Chicago Bears. Dalton Kincaid, when healthy, we know he's a solid tight end, has a big frame, big target in the red zone especially. And we know Josh Allen, he's that quarterback that spreads that football out. We've seen him many times throughout his career. 8, 10 different players have caught a ball from him in a ball game. And Kincaid, like I said, he's a solid tight end. He was a 1st-round pick a few years ago. And this Bill team likes him. Then 11th round, Woody Marks. I like Woody Marks going into the year. I know they got David Montgomery this season in a trade with the Lions with his Houston Texan team, but I still think Marks is going to see the field. Still arguably could be a 3rd down passing downs back as Woody Marks. Got a lot of experience last year in his rookie year with Joe Mixon out for the year with a foot injury, and Nick Chubb just didn't play well last season. So I think Marks is like a handcuff / timeshare guy. He's decent. Same with Tyler Algier. Jeremiah Love, I know he's the big prospect coming out from Notre Dame this season for this Arizona Cardinal team. And it was a surprising landing spot where we know this Cardinal team signed Tyler Algier in the offseason. They have James Conner. They have Trey Benson. But Algier right now, even though it's still early in training camp, he's working with the first team. And Love is mixed in. So I think early in the season, we're going to see, like we did with Algier and Bijan Robinson in Bijan's rookie year, it's going to be a timeshare for the most part, at least for the first half of the year. Then 13th round, when Khalil Shakir, he's got great hands. Him and Josh Allen have a great rapport, good yard after catch, wide receiver, and like I said, good route runner, Shakir. So to get him as my 6th wide out, I think is good value. And then Cameron Dicker and the Chiefs D to close out the draft. So the final roster, Jaden Daniels, Justin Jefferson, Rashee Rice, Ashton Jinty, J.K. Dobbins, Dalton Kincaid, Tator McMillan, Cameron Dicker, Chiefs D. So this draft, obviously, it didn't go that great with the 2nd running back, but everything else, I think I solidified, especially at the receiver position. I have Jefferson, Rashee Rice, and Ted McMillan, I think is great. Quarterback, Jaden Daniels, no problem with that, getting him in the 5th round there. But J.K. Dobbins is my 2nd running back, definitely shaky going into the season if I went in with this team, and even Dalton Kincaid could be hit or miss at times. But the bench, I think I made up for it a little bit. Jameson Williams, Chris Godwin really solidified my receiving core, especially the backups. Krosky Merritt, Woody Marks, Algier, my backup running backs. You just hope one of those guys really breaks out and has a big season, and you put him in there for J.K. Dobbins if he's not performing or injured. And then Khalil Shakir, solid wide receiver, still going to get a lot of reps, still going to get a lot of targets in that Bill offense. So like I said, the strategy, depending your draft position, it could work. But obviously, with the 11th pick overall here, this draft strategy just wasn't that great. where I'm definitely weaker at the running back position, but very strong at wide receiver and even tight end. I took a little bit of a hit compared to the first 2 drafts I showed in this video. So that's Hero RB strategy entering the 2026 fantasy football season.